there, everybody. It's Melanie VanHouten. I'm the founding director of Josephine Sculpture Park, and I thought we'd take you on a little tour today. I know it's probably been a while since some of you have been out here, so we wanted to take a few minutes, give you a little bit of history of the park, and also show you a few sculptures. We're over here in the Eastern Ridge, and I think we're going to see maybe 7 sculptures today. Talk a little bit about how they came to be here and a little bit about the artists too. And then we may be able to answer some questions that some viewers sent in earlier. So hopefully we'll get to all that, and you'll see some new things today. We thought it was appropriate to start here in front of the Clarity vehicle. This is a piece made by a Lexington artist. Her name is Molly Rabiner, and this was actually the very first piece that was installed at the park. We actually installed it in July of 2009, which was a few months before we opened the park to the public, which was in September of 2009. And this piece was originally made in 2003 at Franconia Sculpture Park, which is in Minnesota. And Molly and I were both artists in residence there at different times and knew each other from, we actually both went to undergrad in the sculpture department at the University of Kentucky, also at different times, but we've known each other for way over 20 years, and it was wonderful that when this piece was ready to rotate out of Franconia, that it was able to come back to Kentucky and to be the first piece that was installed here. That meant a lot to me, I think to Molly too, and it just seemed like a really cool way to kick off the beginning of Josephine Sculpture Park. So that's a really exciting piece, and if you haven't seen it, you've probably seen it if you've been here. It's on our t-shirts. I hope you'll be able to come check that out next time you're visiting. Next we're going to move on to a piece by Greg Seigel, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So this piece is called Herb and Clarence, and it's made by Greg Seigel. Greg was primarily known as a potter in Kentucky. He lived in Owen County, and Greg passed away a few years ago, and these pieces were one of the few, maybe the only sculptural pieces that Greg had made, and they were actually in his yard, and a friend of ours, Ellen Glasgow, who owns the Contemporary Gallery, the Capitol Gallery downtown, that has contemporary paintings in it. She had represented Greg for a long time and had a lot of his pottery and some really beautiful drawings too. And she had seen these pieces at Greg's house and thought it would be really important for other people to be able to see them, that they were really significant. So we talked with Greg's wife, Rebecca, who's also an amazing artist, and we, together with the Capitol Gallery, had a fundraising event at the Capitol Gallery, and we raised money so that the park could actually purchase these pieces from Rebecca and share them with people. And we love them because they're really whimsical and fun. Greg's pottery was very much that way, and we're excited. These fellows have been here now for several years, and they're actually going to be moving pretty soon to the West 6 Farm, which is in the northern end of Franklin County. They have walking trails out there. If you haven't been to West 6 Farm, you should definitely check that out too. Walking trails, you can try some of their brews, hear some live music by our very own Jerry Catherine Howell and Nat Colton, and among lots of other great things there. But these guys are going to be heading out there in a partnership with West 6. We have partnerships like that with different organizations and local businesses all around Franklin County. And if anybody out there is interested in having a sculpture at their place, they can certainly contact us, and we would love to share the love and bring some sculptures, you know, beyond the grounds of Josephine Sculpture Park. So hopefully, if you don't see them when you come back out here, head out to West 6 Farm and you can see them there. We're going to move on around the bend here, and we're going to go look at a piece by Erica Strecker, and let's go check it out. So some of you may know this, but probably a lot of people don't, is that I actually grew up on this farm, and people often ask, you know, who was Josephine and what is that connection? And so Josephine was my grandmother's name, and this was my grandparents' farm, Josephine and Art VanHouten, and I spent what seemed like my whole childhood out here And really, I was allowed to just explore all the grounds. I mean, back then it was a 100-acre tobacco farm, and I could just, I'd eat breakfast and then I'd head out and I'd go on an adventure. And one of the things that I found out here that I thought I was just found fascinating was all the sinkholes. And there are still a lot of them out here. They're not the kind of big crazy sinkholes that eat Corvettes like what happened down in Bowling Green, thank goodness. But they're really cool nonetheless, and some of them are pretty decent size. And we're working on a project now to open some of those up. A lot of them, they've so grown over with vegetation you don't really see them. But we're going to try to open some of them up and put some signage around so people can really kind of see those and learn about the karst topography, the limestone, that makes the crust of the earth where we are, is why we have all these sinkholes and underground springs and things like that. So we're going to try to make some of those things more visible to you guys when you come visit as well, because those are some of the things that I just fell in love with this land as a kid and why I wanted to share with people. But that sort of reminded me of Erica's piece here. This is by Erica Strecker. She's also an artist from Lexington, Kentucky. Mostly Erica is known for doing large public art pieces. She and her partner at the time, Tony Higdon, created the Nexus sculpture, which can be seen in front of the Transportation Building in downtown Frankfurt. Beautiful sculpture. She's got a piece at the UK Children's Hospital. She's really known for making monumental sized pieces. So this is kind of a different piece from Erica, which we love because it integrates a lot of different materials. So this piece is called Mass Extinction, and if you look closely, it incorporates a natural stone here that's encrusted with a fossil of an extinct plant, which is, you can see right here. It also, it's been outside now for several years, and it has lichens growing on it, which is really cool. I see a little ant running around over there. But I think this is a nice example of a piece that's incorporated natural elements as well as fabricated elements. These pieces on the side, which actually move a little bit, are blacksmithed. They're forged, so this is made of steel that was heated and hammered, which is pretty fascinating even in and of itself. Sort of like a defense mechanism here for this stone. You may, use the title of a sculpture to start to ask yourself questions about what that artist might have been thinking about. So with its title like Mass Extinction, got an extinct plant here, and these sort of defense mechanisms, you can start to think about maybe a message that Erica's trying to say with a sculpture like this. So I think we're going to move on now and look at a piece by Ben Locke, which is not too far in the distance. This is actually one of my favorite pieces at Josephine Sculpture Park. It's made of fabricated steel, and this would be pretty good representation of what we would call minimalist art, which starts with a capital M. It's not just a descriptor, it's an actual movement that happened. Really, it sort of began in the 60s in response to abstract expressionism, which was like Jackson Pollock, okay? Like, everything was just about feeling and movement, and the artist was, the maker of everything. Minimalism, in response to that, sort of took the hand of the maker away and really focused on form, the elements and principles of design, which we've been featuring in some of our videos online on Sculpture Saturdays. And so this piece is very much about line and mass, negative and positive space. You can actually see up into the inside of the sculpture. It's beautifully fabricated. The welds are immaculate, and it's just the surface of it has created this amazing patina that is just, it makes me joyous just to look at it. So that's my little geek out on minimalist sculpture. One of my favorite minimalist sculptors is Richard Serra. If you don't know his work, go Google it. It's amazing. And if you get a chance to visit the Dia Beacon in Beacon, New York, and actually walk inside of some of the Richard Serra sculptures, do that, do that, do that. It's a life-changing experience. So We're going to move on now to some other pieces here. I think we're going to go look at John Forence's piece. So, all right, so here we are at Jonathan Forence's piece. It's titled EF002. Maybe I should say 002. John was an intern at Josephine 2 or 3 years ago now. He came here from Peru, New York, which is a really small town, way upstate New York, almost to Canada. He was an intern here for a full summer, and part of our internship program is that artists get to work, intern artists, student artists get to work with professional artists to create and install their work, but they also get full use of the studio facilities here and are very much encouraged to build their own work and to really push themselves and maybe try to build things at a scale that they couldn't do, when they were still in school. And so this is a piece that Jonathan made here as an intern. I think it's an exceptional piece, not beyond being a student work. I think it's just one of the greatest pieces here at the park. Again, this is a very formal piece, utilizing line and space, but this one also utilizes actual movement, not just implied movement, but kinetic, real kinetic movement. There are swivels in the sculpture so that on a really windy day it will actually subtly move on its own, or if it is touched by a human it can spin as well. So I'm going to go show you that special part of this piece. We also did a project with the University of North Florida. I don't know if you can see in the distance, there is a piece that looks like a 20-sided die off in the distance. It's called Knot, K-N-O-T, Knot a D20. That was created by a student artist as well who was here through a program at the University of North Florida where we had about 10 students come over the course. I think they were here 3 weeks. And they all built sculptures here on site, worked on their sites, installed the pieces, and then we did a public tour with them looking at, them presenting their own sculptures. And so I think that's another really beautiful piece, especially in the landscape with the rusty patina against the bright green landscape. Is just really beautiful. So I wanted to make sure and mention Maggie's piece back there. Maggie Beavis was her name. All right, so here we are, still in the eastern ridge of the sculpture park. We're looking at a piece by Marcia Pels. You may have noticed today that we've looked at several pieces by women artists, and if you go to, I don't know, a national museum, you probably would be hard-pressed to find as many women artists represented as men. But here at Josephine Sculpture Park, that is really part of the work that we do, is making sure that we are equally representing all genders and people from all different types of backgrounds, people from different countries, so that we have very equal representation among the artists that are represented here. So this piece by Marcia is called Whisper. And one of the questions that we got from some of our viewers was, what is the smallest and what is the largest piece at the sculpture park? And although this piece could be positioned to take up more space, I think as individual pieces it certainly would be considered the smallest piece at the sculpture park. And if we get closer and look at this, from far away you may not even notice this as a sculpture. The artist, this piece was made at Franconia Sculpture Park, which is in Minnesota, and she actually went out into the field and collected plants, large plants from that native landscape, and then she cast those in iron. So you can see some, leaf shapes here and plant parts where this piece was cast from an original plant. She then requested that it be installed in the natural landscape, in taller grass, so that it would kind of have this quiet impact of a whisper. think it's a really lovely piece, and it is probably one that people may not notice because it can blend in a little bit, but it's a sweet piece. So we're glad to have this piece here from Franconia Sculpture Park. We're going to go look at another piece now. So now we've moved on to see a piece by Bridget Beck. Bridget is originally from South Dakota, and she had made this piece actually in upstate New York, partially, but it never was fully realized. And in 2010, we received a grant, our very first grant ever at the Sculpture Park, from the Kentucky Foundation for Women. If you are an artist and doing work for women and girls in Kentucky, you should definitely know about KFW. They're an amazing organization, and they've supported the park in tremendous ways. And the very first way was they supported Bridget's residency here at the Sculpture Park. So she was the very first artist in residence that we've had, and she was able to bring the elements of this sculpture that she had begun to build in New York here to the park. She installed it and then was able to fully realize it through a series of workshops over the course of the several weeks that she was here. And we worked with girls at the high school welding class over at Franklin County High School, and she worked with them to build birdhouses for the sculpture. And then the girls also helped Bridget conduct community workshops wherein families would come and build birdhouses to be installed as well. And that really was her full vision for the sculpture, was that it would become a place where people could sit and watch the birds. The sculpture itself is called Watch. Over the years, it's been here then since 2010. We recently, last year, did some workshops. Jerry conducted some workshops to build new birdhouses and paint new birdhouses, as many of the ones, the original ones, had come, had decayed and needed to be removed, or had removed themselves from the sculpture. So we were able to add some new ones last year. We have 2 artists in residence planned to come for this summer, both Kentucky artists, which we're excited about. And if you want to learn more about our residency program and the artists that may be coming, you can go to our website at josephinesculpturepark.org and look at our blog, check out our Facebook page, and you can learn all about the residency program and what artists you can meet this year. So we hope to see you at the park, and we hope to see you soon.